there's a lady. I'm just gonna refer to her as Ms. Peggy. Um, she's pretty controversial. She's a female Martin Luther King. She's African American, and the words that come out of her mouth are as admirable as what I watched when I was 11 years old, 12 years old, until he was shot to death, Martin Luther King Jr. I was raised in a predominantly white, Christian and Jewish neighborhood outside of Detroit. You know, I watched the riots on TV, 11 years old. Couldn't figure out for the life of me why black folk that were being burned out of their houses by a few radical blacks. There's going to be some blacks that'll get upset at me because I'm a white guy. I wasn't in the middle of it. But see, I was in the middle of it. I was a white kid raised by Christian parents in an all predominantly white, definitely no blacks, predominantly white. Even though every other race and color were allowed, the Japanese, a lot of other cultures, races, but there weren't any blacks in my neighborhood. So how did an 11-year-old kid that was raised and taught everything that he didn't turn out to be? I never figured that one out because it bothered me that the innocent people that were being burned out of their houses and were enslaved for 400 years. That's just by our country. That doesn't include the slavery that's been going on with all cultures. It seems though all countries at one time or another had slaves. Hell, Africans had African slaves, you know, so it's not just a white-black thing. I mean, the history that you didn't learn in school, I've managed to learn over the last 50 years. So I'm pretty appalled at a lot of the history that we weren't taught. We were taught the slided side of it, government side of it. But I didn't turn out to be prejudiced. I got my ass beat many a time, you know, because I questioned the wrong of it all at 11 years old. You know, nope, I'm not black. Never went through what a black man, black woman, black child ever had to go through when it comes to racism. But how can an 11-year-old that was raised to hate blacks, to hate other cultures, to hate other religions, turned out to be a non-believer? I believe in equality. I believe in gay rights, women's rights. You know, I would like some choices to be made different. but it's a woman's body. It's her right to choose. You know, you want to ask me an opinion if you're having difficulty choosing, I'll give you my opinion. But I couldn't understand that our ancestors came here, were welcomed by Native Americans, and in return they were almost annihilated. The black man was brought here as slaves. The North had them, the South had them. There were slaves owned by American presidents that flew the American flag. And yes, there were slaves owned in the South where their battle cry, their battle flag, was the Confederate flag. Being a Yankee raised, prejudiced, but didn't turn out that way. I live in Detroit also. Later, when I became an adult, just happened to be a one block section of Polish people, and all around it was blacks. The whites moved to the suburbs because blacks were moving into Detroit, the predominantly white sections. One by one, them critters moved in, them black folk. All of a sudden, the property value went down. The white folk didn't see the value in it. So it got down to where the black folk could afford it. And guess what? I saw a lot of beautiful houses in them black folk section of town. And I lived there for 2 years. Worked in the factory in Detroit, Cadillac Motor Division. During the second oil embargo of the 70s, after I got out of the military. I only had one incident. 2 kids stole the rims off my roommate's car. I was upstairs and I went running out, went chasing them. I wasn't an old fart like I am now. I was young, fresh out of the military. I was shitting and getting. I was fixing to beat me a couple of pairs of ass. It was 2 punk ass kids wearing hoodies. They kept turning around and looking at me. Broad daylight, first thing in the morning. Guess they thought everybody was asleep. Guess what? It was white kids. A Pollock neighborhood surrounded by nothing but black folk. And the only ones that ever did anything to me and that I ever saw was 2 white ass kids. Go figure. Had a lot of good friends. Sure as hell wasn't allowed to have black friends when I was a kid. Boy, I brought one home one time when I was in high school. I was 17 years old. And my mother still wouldn't let me have a fucking black friend. Leave it to a cat. Always knocking something over. But then I joined the military. And this prejudice is still going on. What the fuck? You know? You don't hear about the black little girl that was killed in bed by a black gangster. I'm going to get razzed about this. It's called Black on Black. And the whites are still way prejudiced. The blacks are holding slavery against the ones that had nothing to do with it. I'm sorry. I was getting my ass beat by my parents when I couldn't figure out the justification to being prejudiced and the wrongs that were going on. I finally understood about 400 years of slavery. Yeah. But the white folk that's flying the Confederate flag nowadays, yeah, there's some that still believe that blacks are lower class. But that's not what, there's part of the southern way of living. Trust me, the actual farmers doing the cotton that couldn't afford a plantation but could afford a slave to pick the cotton. That isn't how it was. It was only the rich farmers down in the South that could afford the slaves. The majority of the farmers down south, you know, when they picked cotton, their kids got out there and picked cotton. All their white farmer neighbors that couldn't afford slaves, you know, they'd all get together. Bunch of white folk that couldn't afford slaves, and they got out there and picked their cotton. It's the white elite of the South, the politicians, the white plantation owners, no different today. You know, they were the 1%, just like today, that control the government, controls the media, controls everything. And they decided they didn't want the North to take their rights away. That was only the 1% that wagered that war. That was it's what they were taught, is what they believed. The North had slaves under the American flag. White presidents had slaves. Do your homework. You know, everybody says if you're gonna get rid of the Confederate flag, get rid of the American flag. They both stood for the same damn thing. Times were changing. There was a part of the country that didn't want to change. The select few that wagered the war against slavery prohibition. Learn your history. It's still not done and over with. You know, the whites hate the blacks hate the whites. Okay, the Christians hate the Muslims hate the Christians. I'm glad I'm neither one. But as far as Black Lives Matter, yeah, they do. Yeah. Got my ass beat too many times when I was a kid when I said it was wrong. That black lives didn't mean as much as anybody else. We all bleed red, and all of our lives matter, so let's get on with it. Miss Peggy, I admire you. I may not say it as eloquently as you do, but I think we both want the same thing. The ink is black, the page is white. Together, we'll learn to read and write. So, can't have one without the other. So, the only thing I ever wanted all my life, even when I was a little bitty kid, seeing everything going on around me, I begged for peace on earth, goodwill to men when I was a believer. And one thing I do believe in is it's possible, highly unlikely, but it's possible for peace on earth and goodwill towards men. Merry Christmas. Happy Kwanzaa. Oh my God, the Jews are going to hate me. I can't think of what they call this time of year. Oh well, I piss somebody off every time I make one of these, so I guess it's the Jews' turn this time. Last time I got the people that hate the Syrian refugees. Another time I got it because I said some things about the Bible. And so why not piss somebody off this time? Sorry, Jews, it just happened to be your turn, okay? No offense. Happy New Year. I hope it can be. Good night. I almost forgot to put my teeth in while it was ticking down for the recording to start. I said, oh shit, I forgot to put my teeth in. Had to throw that in at the end. Bye.